Hey guys, I hope you can hear me. I am doing things a little bit differently today. If you cannot hear me, please let me know and I will do another post here. I'm just going to double check and make sure that you guys can at least see me and that I am in fact live. Okay, it looks like I'm live, but please let me know if you cannot hear me. But I'm back again today. I'm really excited to be here with you guys. I've been thinking a lot about just, how strange things have been socially, economically, globally. I hope you guys are doing well and that you're all staying healthy. Just with this whole forced stay-at-home mandate that we have, depending on where you are in the country, it might be really strict, or it might be still something that you have some leeway and some discretion that you can use. But there's just been so much uncertainty about the future and fears about illness and difference of opinion in the community about what's appropriate. And then there's people who have sick family members and are really just living life or death right now. So this is impacting everyone. It's impacting my family. It's impacting the clients that I work with and pretty much everybody that I know. And last week I talked about, hey Ron, I'm so glad you're with me today. Let me know if you cannot hear me, okay? Or just let me know that you can, just so that I can have that peace of mind. I'm assuming that you can. I'm assuming you'll let me know if you can't. But last week I talked about how, what are the biggest challenges that couples are facing right now with the way things have been. It's putting a lot of stress on marriages and families right now. With homeschooling and everybody being in the same space, and there's not that natural ebb and flow of being able to get out and have some distance from each other or exercise or the routines that keep us feeling sane. And so we talked about what the biggest challenges are and how to reframe things mentally. If you want to check out that video, if you haven't seen it yet, you can check the announcements tab on the left of this Facebook group, and I have all my previous live streams in there. But this week I want to talk specifically about how we can use this time not just to survive, but to actually create something new and come out the other side more in line with what we've been wanting to create, and just take it as an opportunity to create the family legacy that we might have put on the back burner, or that if we really are getting clear and intentional about what it is that we ideally want, we can start living that now. So it's not about just surviving this and coming out the way things were. It's really about coming out of this when this is over with a new foundation. That's really what my talk today is geared towards. And it's really just an analogy that I want to share with you. I've always told couples that when things are falling apart and people feel like they're in the most anxiety and uncertainty that they've ever been in, that they have the greatest opportunity. It's the breakdown that really precedes the breakthrough, and it's the crisis that's the opportunity to actually think, okay, if the pieces are all falling apart and this is not recognizable anymore, I can gather the pieces up and I can put them back together the right way. Because the reason it's falling apart is because it wasn't put together the right way. So it looks like it's chaos because the pieces are all falling apart. If you think of, if you use a mechanistic example of the alarm clock, it's in pieces all over your desk as you're trying to fix it. It doesn't look like what it used to look like. But that's just part of what has to happen to get it back together and have it be fixed and have it, be working for life and not to break down again. So that's how I'm trying to view this time, and I think that it's true for social change and economic situations and health situations in society as much as it is in our personal relationships and our family, how we can utilize a crisis. I think the analogy that I'm going to share really holds for both situations. And it's really a matter of if you can take this and think in terms of how can I rise up? How can I not allow my default modes to take over? Because when we're in fear, our default modes take over, like I talked about last week. If we can rise above that and create something new and get really intentional and work hard now, then we can really come out of this completely the best version of ourselves, individually and also our family and our relationships and our marriage. So the first phase of creating something new is to disrupt the pattern. Okay, so there's 3 phases. One is to disrupt the pattern. What's the destructive pattern that you've been in that is now getting worse because of the recent changes? Now that everybody's forced in these stressful situations, the patterns that have been problematic are likely to be exacerbated. So they come to the light, and you can look at that and go, all right, what do we need to disrupt? What do we need to, how do we stop the injuries? How do we prevent re-injury? Then the second phase is stabilization, and that's to shore up the damage. Harm reduction, which is like, going for a period of time where things are just peaceful and calm, and maybe they're not perfect, but they're not destructive anymore. And it's during that time that you can heal. And then the third phase is you can move from protection into growth. And that's when things have healed and things are strong enough and you have a good enough foundation. Then you can build something new, and you have a lot more energy, and you have more strength to put into creating something new that you might not have if you try to bypass those two previous phases. And I think that is, a common mistake that people make, is they rush into the growth phase before they have stabilized or before they have healed. And so I like to use the analogy of a broken bone. If we have hurt ourselves, I've never actually had a broken bone, but I know that when people break a bone, they have to set the bone first. And then they keep the bone or tissue from getting re-injured, so they put the cast on it. And then that's in the second phase where you're treating it with care, you're taking it easy, right? And the bone can heal, and you have to do that for a while. And then when the healing is done, or at a certain phase, then you can take off the cast, and then you can move into the rehabilitation, which is gaining strength around the muscle, right? And then you can look at what's coming, what's next, right? And you hear about people doing more after injuries or more after illness, or getting to peak health after they've had a decline that they never would have had they not had that decline in the first place. And so that's how I want to sort of think about this process that we can leverage in our homes right now, in our marriages, and with our families. If you think about setting the bone and recognizing that you can't heal until you stabilize the injury, that means putting a new frame around things. So the first thing, how I conceptualize this in terms of this time that we're in with our families and our marriages, is to look at first reframing this lockdown as the perfect time to become conscious of unconscious patterns. This is the perfect time. It's the best time to become awake and really clear about what you want instead, if there's things happening that you don't like. And so that's the first thing, is mentally shifting. And I offered some things in my talk last week that can also help you reframe this. And then it's important to remember in this phase that this is the part where you may have to, it may hurt a little bit. And when you're going to set a bone, it hurts first, right? That it does not feel good. You have to get into the injury. You have to feel the pain to get it right. And for you, that might look like getting people on board in your family and having to create a new structure that wasn't there before. Or it might mean rocking the boat with your spouse. It might mean speaking truth to things that you haven't spoken, shining, or it might be inner work in terms of looking inward and seeing things that are really painful to look at. You're going to be going against the grain. It's going to hurt a little bit in that first phase, but that's necessary to set the stage for the healing and the period of consistency and stability that moves into the second phase. The second phase, I think, is, well, before I get into that, I think one good example of stabilizing is getting into a really good routine, right? And having, if you, in your family right now, that's been recommended and has worked for us, is if you have a routine and you stick to it, and you can create flow and order out of the chaos, which takes energy and focus. But once you can do that and you get the flow moving in the right direction and everybody's kind of getting in the habit of it, then you can move into the healing phase where all you have to do is just not re-injure, and you'll be fine and the healing will take place. So the healing phase and moving into that stability for a period of time, that really comes from how you set the protection around you and staying in that for a period of time. So for relationships and families, that comes from healthy behaviors. How do you not add insult to injury? How do you not, you want to be, the disruption has to happen. That was the first phase. But for the second phase, now it's not about disrupting or re-injuring. It's about keeping the status quo because things have been set in the right way. Once that's happened, then you can keep the status quo a little bit. But what I mean when I say status quo is the new status quo, like the stability and the healthy ways of being. So what is that for you guys? What I think of this as is healthy, balanced thinking. Having a really healthy way of looking at this time, of looking at my children's resistance to online learning and being home and not being able to see their friends. Balanced way of looking at how my role has changed and how I'm going to be doing more cleaning and housework. How do I balance my thinking? How do I lead by example around balanced thinking? Healthy food. What are we eating? Are we taking supplements? Are we getting exercise? Are we getting fresh air? Are we getting a good night's sleep and keeping some kind of, so that we can, our biorhythms can get into some kind of routine where we feel well, physically well and emotionally well. And then interpersonally using healthy communication. And that's the period where you're eliminating the stresses that you can, adding in the things that nurture you in your relationships, whether that's quality time, right? Or, what does that look like for you? It's different for everybody. This can be sleep. This can be certain kinds of meal. This can be loving connections. Like for us, it's playing games as a family. It can be certain songs, music, playing music, taking baths, lightening up on screen time restrictions, creating more comfort, and letting go of the things that are not necessary. Letting go of the things that you might have put a lot of pressure on around being perfect in certain ways, and adjusting, right? But again, that really has to happen strategically in phase one. What am I letting go of? What am I committing to? What is the healthy way that I want to set this bone, so to speak? Then once you've decided on that and you've hopefully gone on the same page with your spouse, and this is so important to be able to come together and advocate for what you think is important, hear your spouse out, and come to a shared understanding of how are we going to do this together, and try to find where you overlap. Then in phase two, you live in that place of overlap and you try things that are going to disrupt or bring up hot button issues. So this is the part where when I'm working with clients and we're in the phase of disruption, but now we're in the phase of healing and building emotional connection first, we're not rushing into the long-standing issues that we haven't been able to solve for 20 years. Instead, we're just trying to build a sense of connection and a sense of safety and a sense of love, and remembering that we love each other. The thing that you want to be focusing on in phase two before you rush into the growth phase. And this takes a long time. If you think about when you have a cast on, when my friends have had casts, and I know people get antsy and they feel like it's taking too long, they want to take it off before it's ready. And so we have to be patient during this time. It takes a lot of patience. But you can use this opportunity to clear out toxic beliefs that you might be holding on to about yourself, about your spouse, even about your kids, checking yourself around that and losing the old habits and destructive patterns that have not served you, and they're certainly not going to serve you when you're even under more stress or in a really abnormal situation. It's a time for inner work, but not so much that you're leaving so far out of your comfort zone that you're feeling really fragile. You want to kind of keep that to a minimum where you're still feeling safe, you're reflecting, but you're doing it from a place of safety and stability. And that's a really personal decision. What does that look like for you? If you know that clearing out limiting beliefs, there's certain things that in order to do that, you have to really look at something that's super triggering for you. Maybe now's not the right time if you know that it's going to put you physiologically into fight or flight. Don't go there, pick something else. So you can pick and choose during this phase two where you're healing and gaining strength as things come back together, right? That's what healing is like everything comes back together. All the broken pieces are fusing back together. And that if you can conceive of you and your relationship in that light, then your marriage is something that can come back together where you're really integrating your values together and you become, unified in goals, even if you have a difference of opinion. Because let's face it, we're all different and we're not always going to agree on everything. But if you can build on what you do share, and focus most of your time on that, you're going to be fine. This is temporary. So that's the thing to remember, and to be patient. Then when the healing has occurred and you've had a period of time, just like with a bone, you can take off the cast, the healing has gone into the body, or in this case, we're talking about the family system or the marriage. The time of nurturing will sink into the culture of the family. It will sink into the culture of the relationship. And you can feel that, when you've been relaxed for a while, you've been feeling safe for a while, you're feeling reconnected, then you can move into growth. Whereas in phase 2, your goal really is to do no harm and to destroy and to keep from re-injuring anything. Growth at this phase, when you're moving into phase 3, now you're strong enough to be able to take some greater risks and move out of your comfort zone and challenge yourself to use some new tools of communication and rocking the boat even further now from the foundation. So this is where you can think about, how can I actively create new experiences of partnership that I might not have wanted to risk before? How can I co-create my life together with my spouse from a place of unity, get on the same team, and expand, going into what our vision is? Or what is our larger vision, right? And having faith around that. That takes a lot of energy, and you don't want to, and that can put stress in the sense that you are leaving your comfort zone, right? And so that's why you have to make sure that you're strong enough before you move into that place. That's the main message that's the main takeaway, is don't rush into the growth right off the bat. First, stabilize things during this time where you're under a lot of stress. But once you're there, once you're at that place where you've had some healing and you're reconnected and you can start tackling these things and go, what do we really want? Actually, this is an opportunity to change how we talk to each other, to change how we come to decisions together, to start solving problems that we weren't able to, because we weren't connected enough. And now we're connected enough, we can start taking actions towards our goals. And this is where the dreams come true. This is where you start to really feel like, oh my God, we're triumphing and I'm able to realize my goals. That's where that's where it feels magical. That's where it feels like it's a miracle, right? That's the part where all the hard work is worth it. Where you really come out the other side and you're like, we actually have something qualitatively new, so that if we were to enter into a crisis or a time of uncertainty or a time of duress in the future, I know that it would be very different right off the bat, because now we have a new foundation and I don't have to build it again. You have it now for life. And that is something that nobody can ever take from you. That skill set, that sense of cohesion, that experience of unity, once you've had that and you've raised the bar, there's not really any going back. You can have a slip up and you can have to do some tweaks to get back on track, but you can't unknow what you learn from these experiences of building a new foundation. So that's the part you want to hang on to, and keeping the faith. And I think I talked about that last week as well. But first you have to shore up the injuries and reduce the stress and heal and let go of the things that you don't need to focus on right now. And I guarantee that if you do a mental inventory of what are the things I can let go of, there's going to be more things than you can think of that you could let go of. Or if you're writing a list and you're like, well, this is kind of on fence, I'm not sure about this, I challenge you to think about more things that you can let go of that aren't that important, that you think are important, because they're connected to an old story. But as you're building something new and you're creating a new story and legacy for your family and for your relationship and for your identity, which is really what it's all about, is you can sustain that kind of relationship. It's really all about staying true to your vision, taking actions one step at a time, and keeping the faith, and making sure that you create a new story, living into that story and releasing the stuff that doesn't serve your new story. So if you're on the fence and you're like, is this something I can really let go of? Ask yourself, is the reason I feel I can't let go of this based on something that is meaningful to me because of an old story that I have about my spouse or about myself? And if the answer is yes, then think about how you can let go of that, or perhaps replace it in a healthier way. Think about what the need is underneath that thing. And then you can move into dealing with the hot button issues that have been festering for years. So maybe don't try that this week. Maybe try that in a week or two, or towards the end of April, or whenever your timeline is. Like, we're looking at beginning of May before we may consider it's going back to school, but that's what our governor has told us, but this could change, as we know. But whatever your timeline is, think in terms of phases, because one of the things I teach is that so much of what people try to do is putting the cart before the horse and trying to do things that you don't yet have the strength or the foundation or the healing to do yet, and it will only re-injure you. So think in terms of this analogy. Think about, what does resetting the bone look like for you? What does healing look like for you? And then what does growth look like for you? And what's your ultimate vision? And take this opportunity. So I want to support you in these weeks, as a time to heal and grow in your marriage and in your family. And I'm going to offer some questions that you can ask yourself to think about this process and write this down and really brainstorm. And you could even do this with your spouse. So the questions to ask, and you can add more to this, but this is just what I think is useful as you think about, what do I need personally in order to create stability and structure for myself right now so that this can be a time of healing and doing no harm and prevention of harm and prevention of re-injury, and disrupting that old pattern? What do I need what do I need for my self-care? What do I need? What do the kids need? What do we need physically? What do we need emotionally? And logistically, if that's something that you can do in your house, right? Like exercise obviously has to be restructured if you can't go to the gym or your yoga class anymore, right? So think about that. What do I need? What can I let go of? And that includes thoughts, stories, resentments, fears. It doesn't mean you can't pick them up later. I think a lot of times people are afraid of letting go of resentments because then they're letting somebody off the hook or there's some injustice. You can pick it up later, but set it aside for now. What thoughts can you let go of? What stories about your spouse can you let go of? What fears? And ask yourself, what behaviors can I release during this time of healing? Not only can I release, but what I desire to release, even though I fear that I can't. And then you can look at, well, why can't I? And then that will lead you down, doing some inner work around that, what the barriers are. But at first, just identify what it is before you look at the barriers. And what new relationship do I want to create? Because any marriage that recovers from the brink, any marriage that has ever transformed from being in crisis and even separated and feeling like I don't even see any hope here, to being reconnected and the couple is deeply in love again, which I see all the time. The only way that this is possible is by creating a new marriage. It's the same people, but not really, in the sense that you are evolving as individuals in order to create this new relationship. And so in a sense, it's not really, you're not about going back to the old relationship. You're creating something new. So it's not like saying you have to throw away your spouse in order to have a new relationship. It's, how do I create a new relationship with this person that I chose? And what family legacy do I want to leave? And how will I know that I achieved that? And, in terms of outcomes, what does that actually look like? What does that feel like? What does that sound like? Share that with your spouse, hear what theirs is, and build on the overlap. And these questions aren't always easy to answer, and your answer today might be different in a week from now. As the wheels are turning, you might start adding things to your vision, or you might start adding things that you realize you can let go of that you didn't think of before. But just to start, you want to ask yourself those questions. I don't think there's ever really been a better time to look inward than right now, when we're forced to bring our energies inward into the domestic sphere. We're forced to spend time with our family and our loved ones, and we can take advantage of that, really, as like, okay, well, I'm here now. How can I use this time to consciously create what I desire? And so this is an opportunity. Maybe you've been putting off for ages. Maybe you've been backburnering your marriage, or maybe you've been backburnering parenting issues because you haven't had the time or the bandwidth because you're so busy working, you're so busy getting from place to place or taking kids to activities. Now is really the time, right? So ask yourself, I have a couple more actually. What could be really wonderful about this experience, right? What could be amazing about this experience? And maybe you've already discovered that for yourself. Where is the opportunity here for you? And which version of you can you bring to the equation? I talked about that last week as well. And then what do I need to believe in order to execute that version of myself? If there's something that you need to So if you learn to believe that, you can actually internalize new beliefs and clear out those old beliefs. Like I said last week, how we do one thing is how we do everything. So you want to bring your best version of who you are to the situation now, because now is how we create a new future. That's the only way. Like, we don't create the future in the future. We create the future in the now. So what resources do you have right now? What can you utilize right now? And just remember that everyone who's successful in life, at marriage, at anything that they wanted to set their mind to, they're using this as they're using crises as opportunities. They're using roadblocks not as a reason to give up. They're using that as a reason to keep going. And that's what you hear people say. Like, people who are enormously successful in business will tell you they failed a bazillion times on their way, and they did not take what most other people would have taken as failure as a reason to quit. So, and in fact, they looked for opportunities in times where other people might have been hopeless or giving up, and keeping the faith even when people around them or their spouse did not share their optimism. So don't let that stop you. Use this as a time to sort of psychologically, and use this as an overhaul in your marriage, in your relationships, and really anything that you want to change about your life. Really, it just comes down to it being a choice. Like, there's no other way around it. It's a choice. What you have in your life is something that you can choose. On some level, what we all have in our life is something that we've chosen, even though there's always forces outside our control that play into that. So we have a lot more power than we think that we do. So if you are wanting to leverage this time, if you're wanting to get some support, if you're struggling in your marriage right now, if you feel like you're about to kill each other, you're overwhelmed, maybe you're feeling unsupported and burdened right now, reach out and book a call with me. It's a free call at monikahoyt.com/talk. I will post the link below, and we can look at what's not working, where the dynamics are, where the cracks are that need to be healed, and create a plan for you that works best for you. Because how to apply these principles really comes down to the particulars of the situation that you're in. So feel free to book a call. It's really for you if you are wanting to make some serious changes from the inside out in your relationship and in your family. Now, if you have any questions, I'm going to look right now and see and answer any questions live. I see Sherry here. Hi, Sherry. I'm so glad to see you. And Richard, you're with us, and Ron. I'm not seeing any questions right now. If you guys have any questions, I am doing live Q&A right now. And if you're watching this, later and you're not on live, I will be, of course, going through and looking at questions on this. Just tag me, and I will see your questions and we'll answer them later on. And if you have any friends or family members that you think can benefit from these live streams that I'm doing, either this one or previous ones that I've done, you can add them to this group, I think on the right hand side of this page, or in the feed when you come to the group. And in the feed, I think to the right hand side, you can add members, and I'll see that you added them and I'll approve them in. They do have to request to join, and then I'll approve them in. So you're welcome, Sherry. I'm glad that that's helpful. So I guess that's it. Hi, Craig. If you have any questions, please feel free to post. I'm not sure how much you heard, but if you have any questions on how to use these crazy times as an opportunity and leverage for transformation and actually creating something better than what you had before, let me know. And I will be there to answer any questions. But I'm going to call it a day for now, you guys. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week. Stay healthy, stay sane, and I will catch you next time. Talk to you soon.